Welcome to Win the Day. I'm Nate, your coach, filling in for Pastor Nat, and today we'll talk about the Master's love. We're continuing in the Gospel of John, beginning of chapter 13, verses 1 through 5, which reads, Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. We now come to Thursday night of the Passion Week. On Friday, Jesus will be crucified. We've recently been reading about how Jesus was still preaching repentance and belief in those last days, preaching a God-ordained message of hope in the light of Christ to deliver us from the darkness of our sin. The sad truth was, however, that many people still wouldn't believe, as was prophesied by Isaiah around 700 years earlier. Jesus had hidden himself away with his 12 disciples to celebrate the Passover. What's documented for us in these next few chapters is a detailed account of Christ's love for those whom God has given to him. We see his love demonstrated in his condescension to us, meaning his lowered state of humility towards us. We see his love through his final words to the disciples, teaching about the promises of God to those he loves and who love him. We also see Christ's love for us in his final prayers and ultimately his final obedience to the will of God. Jesus loved them to the very end, even when the hour had finally come where he would be arrested, beaten, and crucified. He would soon be returning to the Father, but his love never quit. He had perfect love. That's what we see happen in this last night together. Jesus washes the disciples' feet. This gesture is a testament of Christ's love and also an instance of his humility and condescension. In ancient Israel, most folks weren't wearing boots or closed-toed shoes, but sandals. Walking and working all day made their feet dirty. The tables of this ancient era were low tables that people reclined at. They would lie around the table. Everyone's head was at the same level as everyone's feet. You'd see feet, you'd probably smell feet, so foot washing was pretty important. Outside most common homes were basins of water for guests to rinse their feet off. Otherwise, the duty of washing a guest's feet would fall to a slave or to the wife of the house. In a sense, the higher one was in society, the more likely they were to have someone else wash their feet and the feet of their guests. It wasn't a glorious job by any means, but the lowliest of all services, however necessary. But here, when Christ was about to return to the Father, near the hour of his glorification, he stooped to wash the feet of his disciples, even Judas's feet, knowing full well that he decided to betray him. It's not what they would have expected their Lord and Messiah to do. The Son of God, knowing that all had been given into his hands, humbled himself in a position of service towards them. While the disciples sat and ate without thinking to wash their feet, without even a clue to bow and serve their master, Jesus shows them humility. Christ, although he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but he emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Christ's love for us is immeasurable. Why else would he go to that cross for our sake? No mere man could do it. But because he loved God and he loved us, that love drove Jesus to obediently carry out the mission that God planned for him. God so loved us that he gave us his only Son. There is no love greater than this, that someone would lay down his life for his friends. That is love. Christ interrupted dinner with it. God interrupts your life with it. Sit with this. Meditate on the Master's love for you, and may the love of God be with you all.